Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Diana and today we're going to continue the series on the 12 houses of astrology. Today we're going to be talking about the 8th house. So before I get into talking about this intense house, please know that you need to know your birth charts to incorporate the 12 houses. So go on Cafe Astrology, Astro Theme, Google birth chart calculator and get your time of birth. See if there are any planets in the 8th house, or if you even have strong Scorpio, because this video will apply to you. I'm going to be talking about what the 8th house means, what planets in the 8th house mean, and all of that in this video. So the 8th house is a house that is super intense, and I'm kind of like, I feel a little bit weird talking about it because it's like, it's a crazy house. Like I have I'm Scorpio sun, and my sun and my Mercury are in my 7th house, but they're like so close. They're heading into my 8th house. And then in my 8th house, I do have my Venus, I have Pluto in my 8th house, I have Mars and Jupiter. So Mars being my chart ruler, the 8th house is a super strong, intense house. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys know I'm so Scorpio 8th house that it's not even funny. So I don't even know where to start talking about the 8th house, because it's a psychological nightmare, honestly, with the 8th house. So I guess I'll start there. The 8th house is a psychological nightmare, and any planets there are kind of gonna give you a psychological nightmare. So if Venus is in the 8th house, you're gonna have a psychological nightmare / transformation over the way that you love and your self-worth and money. If Jupiter is there, it's going to be about your beliefs. If Mars is there, it's going to be about, you know, your body, your physical attributes, sex, psychological nightmare and transformation with that. And the thing about the 8th house is it follows the 7th house. So the 7th house is already other people that you get into a relationship with. It's marriage. So the 8th house is definitely about the next step, the shit that comes after marriage. The 8th house follows the 7th house, which is other people. So if the 8th house is the most psychological house of the 12 houses, you're going to be dealing with other people's shit in the 8th house. The 8th house is psychological inheritances that were brought upon you from other fucking people. People with a lot of planets in the 8th house, at a young age, they probably were around physically ill people, psychologically ill people. Astrologers like call this the scary house, and they don't really like to talk about it, but you know what? I'm gonna talk about it. Like, I need to be honest with you guys about the 8th house. It's a shitty house. Obviously, like, once you go through all your transformations and stuff, it gets better. People with a lot of planets in the 8th house, they were taught to take on other people's shit and heal them. When I was like a little girl, I had a mom who is psychologically ill. So she put all of her, almost like her karma and her psychological dealings on me. My mom was a rape victim, and she gave me almost this fear of men and this fear of sexuality, and like all of these things she put in my 8th house. This fear of love because men are bad, basically. And that was my psychological inheritance from her. And you know what? It sucks because, you know, I'm glad I didn't go through rape or anything like that. That usually happens with placements in the 8th house, especially if they're badly aspected. But if you think about it, people who go through those things, abuse, rape, victims of domestic violence, shitty ass fucking relationships, they inherit other people's psychological shit because those people that do those things to them are not okay. So all of that is put on them. And it's also the house of power, but it's power struggles because you know, the power is their power is bestowed upon them. And then the 8th house person can either do one of two things, because it's black or like it's one extreme or another. They can either become powerless and then go through cycles of shitty ass fucking relationships, or they become powerful and, you know, deal with their psychological mess, but then they get to the point where they're too powerful. They're not able to give or receive love. I was reading somewhere that Carl Jung even said that people with 8th house planets, they're the ones that can break the curse. They can break this endless cycle of suffering and pain, because in a way that they were given those planets and that power for a reason. You know, they can handle it. They can become these psychologists and these people that can that have strength, that they, you know, go through shitty ass painful things and it breaks them. They deteriorate, but they rise up. That's the beautiful thing about the 8th house and Scorpio energy. All of these painful shit happens, but they become powerful and they rise up and they get strength. And that's as shitty as I'm gonna talk about the 8th house. The 8th house obviously just revolves around other people's shit, but it's also other people's resources. People with a lot of 8th house dominance, they probably will end up marrying people that have power, people that have money. They can work with other people's money. They can work at banks. They can work as investors. They can tell people we're brokers. They stock advisors, financial planners, all of that, credit repair people. They can handle other people's resources. Like, I have worked like in a bank since I've been able to work, since I was like 16. I've worked like with banks. Right now I work in mortgages as a processor. Like, I work with other people's assets. That's a pretty common 8th house thing. They can be psychologists, they can be police detectives. They say that the 8th house, you know, you'll get some type of inheritance, like you'll get money from your parents, like your grandparents, your spouse, something like that through divorce settlements. But the thing is, in order to get that money, you have to go through something shitty. You have to go through a divorce. Your parents have to die. You know, nothing is really easy in obtaining shit from the 8th house. I mean, unless you have like benefic aspects or benefic planets in the 8th house. Some of that money that you get from other people will be easy to get. Okay, overall just represents like your power, shit from other people, transformations. The 8th house is where you everybody has an 8th house, even though they don't have planets in the 8th house. So the 8th house tells you about that area of your life where you have to go through shit to come out stronger on the other end. Like, you have to fucking go bankrupt because you can't pay your bills, or you fucking have to go through that shitty ass fucking relationship. You have to let go in the 8th house because you will become so much stronger. It's those lessons. You can't escape the 8th house lessons because you won't grow. They're painful, they're shitty. Yeah, you have to like lose your house, or you have to go through a divorce, but it's only to make you stronger in the 8th house. And a lot of people don't understand that unless they have transits or solar return strong 8th house or some type of strong Scorpio factor in their chart. But 8th house people, we understand that. So, I mean, if you have any 8th house person in your life, cherish them deeply, because they go through so much of other people's psychological problems, and their psychological problems kind of get pushed aside because it's too painful for them to deal with. Sun in the 8th house. The sun in the 8th house is going to make you super Scorpio-like. So you can sense people's undercurrents. You can never bullshit somebody with their sun, or a lot of planets for that matter, in the 8th house. With Scorpio energy, like, everything is below the surface. Like, they can see right through you. They can pull out things out of you that will make you uncomfortable. Something happened probably early on in their life, like maybe in regards to their parents, that caused them to become this powerful, magnetic individual. I know a guy with his sun in the 8th house. His mom was a drug addict, and his dad was never, well, his dad left them. So he was there dealing with everything on his own, other people's shit. He was the one that, you know, grew power because he had to take care of his brothers and sisters. And, you know, now that same guy, he ended up, like, you know, joining the military, like an officer in the Air Force. Like, with the sun in the 8th house, you're gonna go through jobs and you're gonna want to kind of go up in rank or in position in your job to where it gives you more power. It's with your ego goes through power struggles with the sun in the 8th house. I know when I'm around somebody with their sun in the 8th house, because they're kind of sexy and they're intense. And oh yeah, that's the sun in the 8th house. Intense. A person goes through constant transformations in their life. So the moon in the 8th house. The moon in the 8th house, this person feels intensely. Super emotional mess. Like I said, everything is going to be in here and in here with the moon in the 8th house. It's your feelings, but people will never know. You may be looked at like the strongest person, but that's because you conceal your emotions very deeply. You may have had a really, like, a strong relationship with your mom, but like almost like negatively strong. Like, maybe you have a toxic relationship with your mom. Maybe your mom was one of those people that she always reminds you of, you know, what she did for you. One in the 8th house is also intense feelings. So in relationships, and once you take that deeper level, they're prone to a lot of jealousy and a lot of like crazy emotions, psychoness. 8th house is sex, you know, so sex would be an emotional need for them. So Mercury in the 8th house. Mercury in the 8th house means that your thoughts and your words are strong. They have an impact on people, so you definitely have to measure that quickly. It means that your mind, is like on spy mode all the time. You love investigating. You love getting to the bottom, deep roots of things. It gives you like this pleasure. That you Mercury in the 8th house means that you intuitively know how to spot liars. Like, your mind just processes the undercurrents of people, so you can spot like shit right away. You know how to pick out the facts of things and make your own conclusions. Mercury in the 8th house means that your thoughts and your mind is so powerful, so you want to focus on always having positive thoughts and filter out those shitty thoughts that are in your head and you're aware about. On the bad side, Mercury in the 8th house, it can make you just like a really manipulative person. Okay, Venus in the 8th house. So Venus in the 8th house, you're attracted to these intense, dark relationships. You don't want superficial relationships. You want people who you can heal. Like, you sometimes fall in love with people because you fall in love with their psychological pain. And that can just lead you to shitty ass partners where they're unstable and you feel like you can you can fix them, and you get obsessed with the idea of fixing them. I have my Venus in the 8th house, and all the guys I've dated had narcissistic problems. They had like psychological problems where they internalize their emotions. They had all of these fucking issues, and I've learned over the type of guys that I go for that it just causes me it just causes me pain falling for somebody like that. Another theme of Venus in the 8th house is unrequited love. Your Venus in the 8th house, you're in the Scorpio essence. You fall deeply, you fall hard. You want, 0 or 100. And when you're at 100, it's hard for you to let go. So Venus in the 8th house really teaches you to let go. And it teaches you, Venus in the 8th house wants you to learn how to value yourself. You need to go to the opposite end, which is the 2nd house. It also means that your sexuality is like off the charts. Like you give out sexual vibes and you don't even intend to. Also, when you like hit puberty, you may have found like yourself getting unwanted attention from men, and you didn't even like do anything. Like you just ooze that sexuality with you. Okay, Mars in the 8th house. Okay, Mars in the 8th house. Let's see who had Mars in the 8th house, guys. Marilyn Monroe. So kind of like with Venus in the 8th house, you ooze sexuality. You have this raw sexual energy about you. Like you really want to engage in deep, passionate sex with another person. That's something that you want passion with Mars in the 8th house. You may have been exposed, unfortunately, to that sexual energy at a young age. You may have like a lot of problems, like if you ever go through a divorce or when you get married, like all the shit that comes up, it's kind of like a battleground with you and your husband. You realize that dealing with financial shit, dealing with everything that happens after marriage is like causing fight. With Mars in the 8th house, like you have this fearlessness about you. You think you're invincible. So you may give out this like energy that you're fearless and happy, and but you put yourself in risky ass situations with Mars in the 8th house. That's why a lot of astrologers say to be careful and really measure the risks of anything you decide to do. Jupiter in the 8th house. Jupiter in the 8th house means that anything that happens in your life, all the shit that happens, you're gonna have optimism to deal with it. You're going to look at the bright side with Jupiter in the 8th house. And any house Jupiter is in, it is gonna expand. So if the 8th house wants you to let go of all these shitty things, as soon as you do that, you're gonna get blessings from the universe. Obviously, everything is painful in the 8th house. Jupiter in the 8th house also means that, yeah, you can fucking have luck with money, with other people's money. So you probably do want to work somewhere where you handle that. You will have luck maybe even when you're married, especially if you're a woman and your partner can bring you like a lot of fucking money. Your Jupiter's all it's almost spirituality and all these ideas and beliefs with Jupiter in the 8th house. So you can strongly believe in astrology or the taboo things, and you can really get involved in that, and you'll have luck if you go into things and start learning about those things. Saturn in the 8th house is difficult. I know a lot of people with Saturn in the 8th house. A lot of my good friends have that placement, and it just means like once you get into a relationship with somebody, it's going to kind of bring up things in your life. Like once you get married, your partner probably will be struggling with money, and now you have to take that on, or your partner will be like lose his job, get sick, and then you have to deal with that. So Saturn in the 8th house really wants you to work for you having stability, especially when you get with another person. So make sure that you pay your taxes on time. Make sure that you have your insurance. Make sure like that you have all of that shit. Be extra cautious, especially when you get into a marriage. Make sure you have savings, because shit can happen. And especially when you guys go through Saturn return with Saturn in the 8th house, if you're not prepared for those things, that's when it's like really gonna hit you. Restrict you from going to that higher level in intimacy with another person. Like sex is pretty much just gonna feel like sex, even though part of you craves to have that, you know, higher up connection. It's kind of you're gonna have restrictions in that area. You're gonna feel a lot of the control problems. You're gonna have issues with control as lessons as part of your life, because control, if you don't have control of any situation you're in, you're gonna feel vulnerable with Saturn in the 8th house. This means spiritual relationships, but also you guys kind of get blindsided by things revolving other people's money. Like you probably will get fucked over by credit cards. You'll get fucked over by your taxes. You'll have like weird spiritual paranormal activities to like substance abuse, and like you'll probably hit that final straw with substance abuse. But then that ultimately leads to your rebirth and your transformation, hitting rock bottom as far as substance abuse. And the other thing is that sex for you might be used to heal wounds of the past, or you know, it also, sex might be disappointing because you really want to feel that spiritual connection, because you're very spiritual yourself, but finding a partner that does that can lead to a lot of disappointments or realizations that you're not with like that perfect person. Uranus in the 8th house, Uranus is all about unexpected events. So you'll probably have unexpected events in regards to other people's money. People will come at you and take your money all of a sudden. Like, you know, and those people that I'm referring to, banks, IRS, your spouse. But then all of a sudden, like, you make money really quickly all of a sudden, unexpectedly. Like, you know, you want to connect with a person like deeply with Uranus in the 7th house, but at the same time Uranus is this free liberal planet, so it'll go back and forth from one extreme to the other, which and all that shit that comes with that. Now Uranus in the 8th house can also make for somebody who's super psychic, but it's always unpredictable. You'll get these all of a sudden unpredictable visions of things, and even like dead people or like crazy things, and even connections to people who are close to you who die with Uranus in the 8th house, and also Pluto. So let's talk about Pluto in the 8th house. Pluto is at home in the 8th house. Pluto is at home in the 8th house. So that means, okay, so Pluto is at home in the 8th house. So that means that you'll have transforming relationships. You'll be able to transform people when you have Pluto in the 8th house, or, you know, a lot of planets in the 8th house. And that's because Pluto is this probing planet. So Pluto wants to bring out the best in people, but forcibly. It's not the easiest planet, but when you have that much energy in the 8th house, you feel like you can really transform people, and you can, but you have to find the people that are willing to be transformed. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with your own psychological problems, because who you're meant to be, they're not letting you be. To bring out other people's highest potential and help them evolve, and it's uncomfortable. You're gonna run into a lot of relationships where you see what people can be, you see the best versions of them, and they're not gonna let you. And I tell you that from experience. You're gonna run into blockages, and it's only gonna hurt you, because helping people only builds up this, you'll fall in love with these people, and it'll bring out this like intense obsessive desire. You'll become obsessed, like with like the deepest wounds. It's a lot of power struggles. I mean, it's a lot of struggles over money and sex, and because you have Pluto that represents all that in the house of other people's money and sex. So that was it for my 8th house description, guys. Remember, the 8th house people, you guys, if you guys are 8th house people, you guys are strong. You guys were brought onto this world to give strength and to radiate this energy of power. If you guys have planets in there, make sure that you guys realize that the transformations that those planets are going to give you, and whatever, in regards to whatever that planet means, are for the good. And it's going to understand that, you know, the 8th house Scorpio, all of the energy of those planets, or all of that energy, is always internal, and nobody really knows what's going on beneath the water. And I'm sorry if you guys went through some shitty stuff in the 8th house. Just know that you guys are strong, and I admire it, because I didn't have the worst experience that you can have with the 8th house, but I can only imagine, and I can feel deeply for you guys. And go through those transformations. Let go of shitty things with the 8th house. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say, guys. I'm gonna now go watch 50 Shades Darker because it just came out. So yeah, bye guys.